Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this live event. And thank you to all the ones that will be watching the recording at a later stage. And I'm sure that there will be many because today we have an exceptional guest. And, but before we start talking about today's exceptional guest, how about discovering a bit more about our audience, right? The people that are actually joining us live and that will have the opportunity to interact with Joe Navarro and I during this session about why nonverbals matter in negotiations. So, uh, maybe how about if you want to tell us about your expectation from the session, if you have a specific thing, or even simpler, from where are you connecting from? I mean, I know that with this today, our event is a bit later than usual, maybe a bit late for our Asian colleagues, but I will not be surprised if we have someone that join us also from Asia, considering the special guest that we have today. Hello, Kevin. Thank you for joining us, and of course, let's see where the other people are coming from. And remember, this is your event. So I have plenty of questions that I can ask to Joe, but if there is something that, was in your mind that you are not completely clear about how to manage, that's your opportunity to get one of the very, very best experts in the world to help you out on this topic, right? Yes, so silent language of leadership with island horses. Okay. Right. And then, we have Julia from Rome. So fantastic. And we have Giovanni from Lausanne. Fantastic. Very good. And of course, I'm sure that as you connect, there will be more and more people that will be with us to take this opportunity. But I will say a few words about myself. My name is Giuseppe. I guess probably many of you know. I'm a former business executive that became a business school professor in 2019, and I'm also leading the company CABL. But let's try to discover who is our special guest, because you probably know that I recently wrote a book, Negotiation Plus Influence Equals Success. Became bestseller in 3 countries, top new release in the US. But there is somebody here that has written 15 books. Joe has written 15 books. And by the way, if after this session you want to read a book about body language, then What Everybody's Saying is a book from Joe that has sold more than 1.5 million copies. More than 1.5 million copies. So I will say, don't miss it out. What everybody is saying. That's the title. But let's discover a bit more about Joe. Joe, if you can say a few words about yourself.
Well, thank you, Giuseppe, for having me here and giving me access to your lively audience. For 25 years, I worked as an FBI agent, which actually gave me a great advantage because I got to observe people all day long. And then when I retired, I was asked to write a book by the government to sort of have a record of my observations on interviewing, and that led to other books. And slowly, as you know, writing is not easy. I've been lecturing now for 20, about the same as I was in the FBI. And so that's where I am today. And by the way, if I may, I really enjoyed your book. I think it's one of those books that will have a long shelf life because it's an easy read, it's enjoyable, it's full of good knowledge. So I hope everyone that's listening will go out and get your book. I have it on Kindle, and I love it. So thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. We'll put the link. We'll put the link on the chat. In case people want to check both our books. what everybody's saying from Joe, and negotiation planning influence equal success from me, just so that you can check them out if you're interested in those topics. Now, let's get started. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, I have question for Joe, but you probably there is something that you want to discover. So let's get started. Now, maybe a question that looks simple, but it may not. What is the difference between body language and nonverbal communication?
Yeah, great question. So, non-verbal communication is really anything that communicates but is not a word. So, under this very broad umbrella or parasol, you have body language, you have symbology, you have things like how colors influence us, right? We have things like tone of voice. Tone of voice is a non-verbal. And so there's the things that we attach to ourselves, our clothing, the way we wear our hair, all fall under the umbrella of nonverbal communication. And then there's the body language. So they're not the same, even though some people use them the same. Nonverbals has a very broad application.
Fantastic. Let's start with the smaller piece, the body language. Why body language is so important in negotiation?
Giuseppe, it's our first language. I was born in Cuba. You were, you're Italian by background. Those are the languages that we learned. Body language is the first language. It's the universal language that we learn. It's learned at a very intimate level because we're being held as babies. So we can smell each other. We can share our scent, the heat of our bodies. A baby can only see this far focused. So everything is very close. And so we learn to read each other. We learn to examine each other's eyes and so forth. As we grow older, we just build on that. Later, we take on a new language. In my case, Spanish, and then English, and then Portuguese. But in all, it is our primary language. And we think that what matters the most is the spoken word. But when for instance, I studied the shamans, the healers around the world. These are the pre-industrial people that, and even today, there are shamans all over the world. The one thing they all had in common is the healing of others. Whether you're a doctor in modern medicine or you're a shaman, it always begins visually, then vocally, tone of voice, then verbally, and then through touch in that pattern. So, around the world, it is still the primary means by which we communicate.
Okay. Now, let's be very explicit. Now, is there an advantage of being able to read the body language of others? And
absolutely.
How it is an advantage. Give us some more example about how this could work, right?
Absolutely. We know from the research. Okay, so this is from the research of Dr. Ambati at Harvard. This research goes back to the late 80s. It is ample. The research is ample and it's solid. Those who can read other people more quickly and more accurately are more successful in life, are able to recognize changes in emotions more quickly. They can pivot more quickly. They can interact with others more quickly. They can engage more people at once than those that can't. They can also turn their own body language into a means of influence. And so we know, and this is why Daniel Goleman was talking about social intelligence or emotional intelligence. All that is the ability to read others, decode their behaviors, interpret it, and then act on it. And that's the tremendous advantage of being able to read body language. It just gives you so much more advantage. At the negotiation table, you'll be looking at maybe one person, there's 5 others in front of you, and you'll be able to assess all of them at once, so that if you begin to sense restlessness, or you begin to sense that there's doubt or incredulity, you can pivot in an instant and address that before it escalates. Most people wait too long, and now their minds are set, and that's the beauty of body language.
Yeah. Now, by the way, let me go for a moment into internal negotiation, right? And one of the challenges that the participants to my workshop experience is the ability to read the context. Let's say they're making a pitch to the general manager.
Right.
I'm not talking about in a presentation, but a
No.
one-to-one interaction, presenting their project. And most of the people that go there, they will go with their speech, their message, and whatever happens, they will keep going with the script. And we talk a lot during my workshop about how can I read the context, how can I understand the energy level change, whether the person is open or not, the position that they have on the chair, and those kind of things. I'm sure that much more on this topic. So Joe, what will be your key tips that you will give to people in order to understand to read the context?
Oh, we should go and teach together, because this is what it's all about. We call it reading the room, and reading the person. Let's say you want to negotiate something for your future, an advancement or more money or whatever. First you have to read the room, and you read the room by you're going to be talking to this individual. What's he like the minute he enters into the office? Take advantage of information, what we call pre-event information. What's his mood when he comes to the office? If he normally says, or she says hello to everybody, but today his head is buried down, or she walks in, she's in a hurry, and so forth. Are they, do they have a closed door, open door? What is their mood that you can assess from the outside? You can always ask people, how's the boss today? I mean, I've done that. I remember when I was in the FBI, I always went to we called them secretaries at the time. I went to the secretary and would say, how's the boss today? Oh, he's in a really good mood. Boom, I'm in there. But, sometimes we don't have that advantage, but we can certainly begin to read each other and say, is this a good time to approach? The other thing is, look at the advantage that you have by working there. If you know that this guy or this lady enjoys her coffee, her latte in the morning, reading the newspaper, or looking at the latest things on YouTube or TikTok for the first hour of the day, don't interrupt that. Don't interrupt that, because you're going to create psychological discomfort. You have to read the room. And if you have antecedent information, this is fantastic. And then, it's one of, are they informal or formal? Now, some bosses are very formal. Others are very informal. You abide by what we call preferences. What are the personal preferences of this individual? Do they expect you to stand as you make your presentation? Or, like me as a young FBI agent, what did I know? I'd just come in and sit on a chair and pretend like everything is fine. You have to know what are the preferences. I quickly learned that with superiors, you always stood until they invited you to sit down. And then it's a matter of, are they paying full attention to you, or are they trying to type, drink coffee, and answer a text message from their family at the same time? If they're multitasking, you want to wait until you have their undivided attention. And then the process is one of constantly reading them, especially when you say, well, I'd like to talk to you about my promotion or this and that. Look at their body language as they respond to your initial comments. The other thing to always think about is, if you're coming in with a heavy subject, always stand further apart. Now, sometimes that's just a matter of a few more inches, but never, ever get too close. And I'm talking by just, this much. Anything that is going to cause consternation or difficulty for somebody else, or is perceived that way, you never want to get too close, because there's an area of the brain called the amygdala, and it perceives bad news and spatial violations as more bad, worse. So if you have bad news, or if you have something that the person, maybe you've talked to them before and they've had difficulty with that, stand further back. Stand further back and say, I'd like to talk to you about what we talked about last year at this time, and that is my promotion. And then always remember that humans are minimize face time if we're directly in front of each other. That the ideal, because we're primates, and primates are aggressive this way, that the ideal is to always be at a slight angle so that you have greater face time. So sitting directly in front minimizes face time. Sitting at a slight angle, even though you're sitting in front of each other, but leading with a shoulder, actually increases face time and makes the other person relax. And the other thing is, once you've indicated what you're interested in, never stand there like you're a drill sergeant. Tilt your head, incline your head, so that you're communicating, I am receptive to whatever you have to say. It doesn't mean that you agree with it. It just means that I am receptive. Head tilt is universal. We first experience it as babies. The piata in Rome, you see the mother with the baby. It is the universal indicator that at this moment, I'm not going to have an agenda. I'm actually going to pay attention to you. And it's extremely powerful.
Wow. And then, if we continue, because the topic is so fascinating, right? What will be the kind of things that you will be paying more attention to see how the energy level changes? It will be micro expression of emotion. It will be whether they lean forward or lean backwards, or how they change their hands. What will be the kind of things that, because, here we are getting, golden nuggets, so I'm going to take the question from the audience in a moment. Thank you for the question that are already in the pipeline, but this is a fascinating topic. Is something that, if you're listening and you're struggling with your internal stakeholders, here you may get something which is amazing.
Great question. So what I look for is, first of all, in none of my books you'll hear about micro expressions. As the guy that invented the term says they're rare.
Paul Ekman, yeah.
Yeah, Paul Ekman says they're rare. So I don't spend any time. I look at just behaviors of either comfort or discomfort. So what I look for is tension in the face, compressed lips, a lot of neck touching. Right? Neck touching we associate with something negative, with something that's troubling. Our species, if I may speak as an ethologist, we tend to cover our neck when something is disagreeable. And so I look for the tension in the face, compressed lips, perhaps, I remember my old supervisor in Tampa, Florida. Every time I came into his office, he would just rub his head like, "You're going to give me a headache, Joe. I just know you're going to give me a headache." And I would. I would, because I would ask for, I'd say, I need 5 more agents to help out. And he's like, "Where am I going to find these people?" So you look for the behaviors, which I talk about in my books, of comfort and discomfort. And when you see discomfort displays, then the furrowing of this little area here is called the glabella. The furrowing of the glabella, the furrowing of the forehead, these are all negatively valent. So I look for that to determine, okay, is this affecting him negatively? Is this something that's really going to be bothering him? If you're asking for a raise and he knows what the company can afford, he may be sitting there massaging his face, stroking the sides of his mouth. It's called perioral stroking. He may be pinching his chin. A lot of nose touching. Nose touching is self-soothing behaviors. So I look for that to then tell me, okay, what I just said is stressing him. So let me do this. How now do I, and it's just like negotiations, how do I now deal with this and say, look, just be frank with me. What is the big boss or the front office that we used to say? What have they said about promotions or increasing pay or salary or whatever? And sometimes you can cut to the chase, even in negotiations, that way. So I use body language to let me know, was this information well received, or is it already causing this individual additional stress? If it's causing additional stress, maybe I can, because I have to think long term. I'm going to be in this company for many years. I have to think long term. So how can I be of assistance in calming things down, in being respectful, but also acknowledging that, I'd like to receive more money. So there's different ways to do it, but we always are observing for comfort and discomfort. And it's who can read it the quickest. For instance, if you're talking to the boss, right, and he already starts pinching his mouth as he's listening, maybe he's nodding, he's already closing it off. and it gets worse. If he's doing this, and then does this, it's over. It's over. The dramatic lip pull, either left or right, it's like, okay, you need to back away from this. So the minute you see the lip pursing, you have to jump in, especially in negotiations or sales, and say, get out of this, give him the opportunity to explain what's going on, and say, look, I know this is a lot to ask of you on a Monday or a Tuesday. Maybe if you just explain to me, what's the front office thinking about all of this? Or, what are the obstacles? Let me know. And that's how we use body language. Yeah.
Fantastic. By the way, and then I'm going to leave the floor to the audience, I promise. But I'm interested to see, one of the things that makes a difference in negotiation is also the presence that you convey as you start, right? If you go in with shoulder down, a worried face, and, an overall posture that conveys fears, then you're already putting yourself in trouble. Now, based on your legendary experience, what can people do to, especially at the beginning of the meeting, to convey the right presence as they start a negotiation with a customer or a supplier?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is to tell yourself that I am a transmitter of information. Yeah, I may be a manager, I may be a negotiator, I'm all of that. But the first thing is to remember I'm a transmitter of information. And my job is to decide, much like in theater, what is my role and what is my purpose? Now, if my role is to be in the lead, to be in charge, to be decisive, then I have to play that role. That means I have to look like it. Do I want to look like Robert De Niro in Casino, or do I want to look like the floor manager at the casino? You've got to figure out what your role and how you're going to play it. I'm reminded of I go around the world leading workshops, and there was a gentleman that came up to me and he said, I was trying to get into the aircraft leasing business, and I thought, these people have been in this business for since 1919, and it's a tough business. It's very competitive. But he said, I walked into that meeting, and these guys had their shoulders slumped. They were walking around. Nobody had a smile on their face. They were all, and and it dawned on me that at that moment that the aircraft leasing goes up and down. It goes up and down, and that was a down moment, and I didn't know enough to know that in advance. And so I came in aggressive. And the minute I made an offer, that was the first time those guys lit up. And by their own body language, they were saying, you're our savior right now. Something you never reveal. You never reveal how you really feel unless you want to. And so he came in with a very low offer. And when he saw out of the corner of his eye that the guy at the end was excited about that offer, he said, "I've got him."
They must be desperate. They must be really desperate.
They're desperate. They're desperate, and I'm sure that these experienced executives never even thought about what they were transmitting, and yet they lost. At least, from what I was told, they lost somewhere between $60 and $70 million of potential on that deal, just because of their body language, of their body language. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let's take a couple of questions. Then I have a few more for you. But let's see. After reading 2 of your books, I want to put your ideas into practice. What strategy will you recommend for a student to apply and develop stronger body language skills?
Yeah, great question. What I would tell my mentees and the people that I work with is that's great. You read my book. Now go out and validate it. When you're in negotiations is not the time to be thinking about body language. If the guy goes like this or does this or scratches, now is not the time to think about it. You have to have experienced it. You have to have validated in advance so that when you're in the theater of negotiations, it just comes to you automatically. It's like software in the background. So read the book. I think, in what everybody is saying, there's 180 behaviors. The Dictionary of Body Language has 400 behaviors. Just pick 20 or 30 behaviors that you become so comfortable at reading that you never have to think about it. And that will give you a tremendous advantage. So the minute you see, you see in negotiations where they're grabbing the edge of the desk or the space between the fingers narrows or the thumb disappears, all negative. That's all negative. That's weakness. You don't have to think about it. You can actually just experience it, and then you can deal with it. So that would be my best advice.
Wow. Amazing. Let's listen to, so by the way, just to complete, right, when you say then people have to validate it, what you're saying is that you start validating it in daily life, when you're meeting your friends, your colleagues, your partner, right? You start recognizing those kind of things in less tense kind of situation, so that when you are in a difficult negotiation, those things come automatically, right?
Perfectly stated. Perfectly stated. This question that's asked by Regina, what I find is, and it's so much easier now, usually, and my wife knows this, I will download probably 20 to 30 movies from around the world. Persian from Iran, Egyptian, Japanese, Korean, Russian, Latin American, movies from around the world. And then what I do is I watch them without sound, without words, and without music, because music often affects it. And I watch them for the body language. There is yet to be one movie, not one movie, that I haven't understood based on body language. But what I do look for is the differences. For instance, in Japan in particular, sometimes in Korea, people will laugh, especially women will laugh and block the laughter, and so forth. Okay, that's cultural. But everything else, the look of interest that you see in a novela from Brazil is exactly the same as the look of interest that you see in a novela from Turkey, which has a great history of theater. For me, this is how I train myself. So when I'm going to a different culture, so for instance, people say, well, when I go to Mumbai, I don't understand the side-to-side motion of the face. Slow it down. Slow it down. And what you see is neck exposure. Neck exposure is always positive. It's always positive. We don't expose our necks unless, that's why you see it at cafes. You see the lovers looking at each other. We expose our necks when there's high degree of comfort. So the back and forth, to you, maybe you think, oh, that's no. That's neck exposure speeded up. So usually right before I travel abroad to a country that I've not been to, and now I rarely have to do it anymore, I will look at some movies from that culture, and that's always very helpful too.
So next business trip that you're doing, when you're on the plane going to Japan or to Brazil or to Nigeria, watch a local movie on the plane. Watch one of the local movies.
Exactly. If you're going to Nigeria and you're a person of high respect, or you're an elderly person, and for the first time you notice that somebody tenders a handshake, which is like this, and you've never seen this before, you have to realize that they are venerating you because they're offering their hand with so if you've never seen that before, and I've seen people look at that with like, that's weird. No, that isn't weird. You're in their culture and they're venerating you. You have to respect that culture.
Wow. Fantastic. Listen, we could talk for hours. I just want to make sure that we manage this without making it too long. Let me ask you two more questions, right? How do you use our hands? How do we use our hands in negotiation strategy?
I'm sorry, there was a little, how do we use our...
How do we use our hands
in
negotiation strategy?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, the human brain is always assessing for facial features, but it's also looking for hands to signal, which is why no matter how dark skinned you are, the palms of the hand are always brighter, wider, because there is a necessity. There's an evolutionary advantage to being able to signal with your hands. What I like to tell people is, depending on circumstances, you want to use hands to powerfully communicate thoughts, ideas, different things. So I actually do classes on hand gestures, on what are powerful hand gestures for negotiation, because I come from Latin America, where, we use our hands very wildly. And sometimes I look like an upside down egg beater. In negotiations, you can't do that. A person who is in charge, who is a leader, has to slow down the gestures so that they become illustrators. So leaders have smoother gestures, but broader. So in negotiations, my gestures aren't here, they're here, but they have to be smoother, because the higher in command you are, the smoother your gestures. The lower in command you are, the faster. So we use our hands to communicate confidence. The most powerful behavior of confidence that humans have is not the chest out, it's the steeple. It's like this, which is why Angela Merkel used to do it. Steve Jobs used to do it. Leaders around the world. Mark Cuban, you'll see him doing this. How do we know that it's universal? In 1974, I studied children who were born blind. They've never seen this behavior. They will steeple when they're confident, and they've never seen this behavior. Wow. So we know it's universal. And a lot of people think, oh, if I talk louder, or actually, if you want to get noticed, you talk loud. If you want to influence, you talk low. Pay attention. If you want to get noticed, you talk loud. But if you want to have influence, you talk lower. And then you use powerful gestures to say, no, this is our best and final offer. And that's it. There is no other gesture that you can do that potentiates that. You've done it there.
Wow. Fantastic. Now, we talked about loud voice, low voice. How about silence as a strategy? To conclude, what are your thoughts on silence?
Absolutely powerful. Powerful. I'm on the board of global advisors on Libra, and I can tell you that one of their best negotiators sat in a room and just pondered what was just said. And I was sitting in the back of the room, and I'm watching, and I'm becoming uncomfortable. The people in front of us were becoming uncomfortable, and he just kept looking down at his notes. But he kept spreading his hands. He kept spreading the hands on the chest. Humans feel very awkward when we don't talk. For the most part in the West. In Japan, it's very acceptable to delay answers for the delay in answering back was probably around the 40-second mark. The other team jumped in and he says, all right, I'll give you what you want. Just based on silence. I've used it throughout my career, where I was, people say, well, a former FBI agent, stop right there. What do you think an FBI agent does? An FBI agent is negotiating every day to get people to, in my case, defect to the United States, cooperate with the United States, or get this, agree to tell us what happened and then go to jail. If you think negotiations for an object is tough, you have no idea what tough is. I'll tell you what tough is. It's trying to get somebody who works for another government to say, I'm going to abandon my country, bring my family over and work for you. That's tough. And the only way to achieve that is by, being trustworthy, number one, but having the command of all our abilities to communicate, which is both verbal and nonverbal.
Wow. Amazing. So rich. I think, now the good news for the people that have been watching live and you say, oh, there were so many, you're going to get the recording. So, you can watch it again and again, because there is so much wisdom from this message, from this discussion with Joe, that deserve to be watched again. By the way, you also found the link in the chat to Joe's best-selling book, one of his 15 books. You also find in the chat the link to my book that I just published on the 8th of September. So, if you want to continue to learn more about body language and negotiation, take those opportunities. Joe, a real pleasure to have you with us. Thank you very much.
The pleasure
And all
is
the
mine,
best to our
Giuseppe.
audience for being with us. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.